What's up, troopers? This is another. Okay, you got me again. I need to be more prepared. This is another episode where we're going to be talking about a battle card. This is the secondary objective, sweep and clear. This is, in some ways, maybe it's the most straightforward in terms of how it's scored among the secondaries. Anyway, you just got to like kill people in different zones. When you are in different zones, we should say more specifically, it's the shooting unit or the attacking unit that matters in terms of scoring. But even though the objective itself is simple, the thought of what goes into it is not quite so simple. So, Mike, like, I think the biggest choice here, since the objective itself doesn't offer any choices for players to make, the biggest choice is what lists are including this in their objective deck. And so, what list should include it in their objective deck, Mike?
Yeah, so I think that there are two things that you should consider here. The first is that this is one of the few secondaries that really care about deployment zones.
Mm.
Um, and so, uh, for instance, I would not want to play sweep and clear and close the pocket. That would be just generally because your units don't really want to be in their deployment zones
It's
and
pretty
close
tough
the
to get
pocket.
the score from your opponent's zone and close the pocket. Yeah.
Yeah. And not only that, but there's a high level of incentive for everybody to just crash the middle of the table.
You may not even
In
score your home from your own zone.
exactly,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I would say that as objectives are added to the game, and but I think close the pocket is like probably the biggest example of one I would
Hmm.
avoid with this objective. Um, but something like you know bunker assault is much more reasonable, right?
Yep.
The POIs are much closer to the zones, um, and it's much more just everybody's kind of all in the same place. The other thing is that you want to be able to make sure that you can actually like effectively score the modes on this card.
Hmm.
The modes on this card that matter are being able to shoot things from your zone and shoot things from their zone. And
Yeah.
what that really means is you need to have at least one or two units that can do either of those things well. Things that kill stuff from your zone well, generally things that shoot range 3, hopefully range 4,
Hmm.
and like that's one that should be looking to probably score on turn 1 in most lists that have sweep and clear. We're thinking death troopers, we're thinking commandos, we're
Snail
thinking
tanks.
snail tanks, we're
Yeah.
thinking strike teams, right?
Yeah.
And then on the flip side of that, killing things from their zone is a little bit more complicated.
That's the hard part.
It's definitely the hard one. That's why it's worth more
That's right.
points,
Exactly. Exactly.
right? Units that are really good at this have steady. Bad Batches, this is like Bad Batch's
All right.
objective,
Bad
right?
Batch loves this one.
You can kind of get weird with like force users and force push, though. That often means that they sometimes have to get off POIs to do it, which is maybe not the best
Sometimes it's
thing.
worth it to score two.
It definitely can be
Yeah.
for sure, but sometimes it also they end up in like not where you want them. I've been executing this with a Ahsoka squad dropped out of a lat with
Hmm.
Cody combined arms shenanigans.
Yep.
I've just been
Exactly.
like killing my opponent's stuff in their deployment zone on turn 1. You can kind of come up with funky ways to do this, but you do need to have a plan to make sure that happens. And the other piece to this puzzle is as your opponent gets farther away from their deployment zones, it gets harder to do.
Yep. Which is where that force push thing can come in, or the Dooku 3 pip. That's something that's been done against me in the past.
Yeah.
Is to use that to like get a unit really close, and then some decas in their home zone, just like start murdering them. Uh, Other things you can do that we hadn't mentioned yet is that speeders, they can
Yep.
be zooming around. Like if you're, zooming across a safe part of the short edge, and then sort of coming around on your opponent's long edge, hopefully in a place where they're not going to be like interrupted by big shooting units. But if definitely think about using terrain to your advantage, to be like coming around from the back, and then if you are able to if you were able to do that successfully, then you can stall a little bit and like do move, move, shoot, and then the next turn do an aim, shoot, move to really try to make sure that you can score that while it's sitting in the back zone. And then maybe the most fun way that I've seen to get this done is to use the Gideon 2 pip. You have something I want to just like yeet a Dark Trooper unit into the opponent's deployment zone as long as it's range 2 away from any of their units, which is pretty likely mid game
Yep.
to be able to do that. Then all of a sudden you can be trying to score this with a Dark Trooper, which is relatively easy to do in the grand scheme of things as far as you know, most of the units we've been talking about that can be on back points are the speedy ones that tend to have like sort of wimpy dice pools by comparison.
Yep.
But if it's a Dark Trooper unit, then you can be like throwing some good stuff in there. So that's I'd say if you have Gideon and Darks in your list, then you should definitely have this card in there. Um, and then I think that one more thing that I do want to mention, Mike, is that this objective is also good for a specific type of list, which is a list that is aiming to not lose very many units at all. So as we record this, it's been a relatively recent phenomenon that was sort of started with Ollie Dyer's 6-act clone list that got big over in Europe. But there are more iterations of that. Like we're starting to see some Empire iterations, some Yoda iterations, but lists that focus on not really having any units that are, there's nothing even close to the lines, like some being along the lines of a naked rebel trooper, which is like a super killable unit that's often going to have to be at least exposed a little bit, or even something like a ATRT that takes a little bit of extra effort, but is usually going to be killable in most games. Like we're talking about lists that have nothing but characters and super squads or something very close to that. If you have a list like that, then you're achieving something by reducing the degree to which your opponent can score any of these points. You compare that to like an average game where multiple units are killing multiple other units on each side, and therefore, you have all these options. In most games, the any territory and the contested territory are going to be checked off pretty quickly, but with those very sort of compressed meaty lists, like your opponent may only get one check mark, and then if you can get two, then you're winning the secondary. Even if you don't have like those lists don't have fancy tricks about being in their opponent's back zone at all, but they can still.
Sure they do. They have bad batch.
That's true. They have bad match. I take it back. The Empire one maybe would have relatively fewer, but even if you don't score that bad batch, you're still winning if your opponent literally only checks one of those boxes and you can do two.
Yep.
And that's really what you're trying to do. Anything else about sweep and clear, Mike?
I think it's really important that you score on turn one, if at all possible. Scoring on turn one makes and not letting your opponent score on turn one is like pretty big deal.
Which it's something that we hadn't mentioned yet is the fact that you can only check one box per round.
Yes, yeah. So just making sure that you are not missing around. Obviously, like you do get a gimme round, if you will, but because games end at 12, just having more points more early is always better, right? So you definitely want to be, starting the snowball early because, if you can score, the one from your zone on turn one and then, contest it on turn two and then score their deployment on turn three, like all of a sudden, like you only need to be finding 8 points from the primary over,
Yep, absolutely.
2 or 3 turns, right? So
definitely remember that. Remember that you can only check one box per round is another thing that I would say. So with that, it's a nice, short and sweet one. Less than 10 minutes on this one, Mike. We're really, really getting better.
wow.
We'll see. We'll see if we can do that when we talk about one like surface scan or bring them to heal. It's a little bit more complicated, but
Bring them to heal, maybe. Just throw suppression on your opponent's units. You're done.
no, don't spoil it, Mike. We need to keep people guessing about how to play the suppression objective. But yeah, with that, please do comment on this one. Just like with all the battle cards, there's going to be differing opinions. I think that there's various ways to get at this, and so if you have your own way that's different from us, then leave it in the comments, and that way people who look at this later can see all that stuff too. And robust discussion is what we want.
They'll also change over time.
And it will change over time for sure. More units are going to come out. Like as we record this, the speeder tank is not yet out, and that may be a good sweep and clear one. We don't even know.
Wait till the customizables come out and
Oh
they
boy.
have like an option where you play two secondaries in the same game
Or
or
they just
something.
deploy in your opponent's zone, just like really
Yeah,
crazy stuff. Who knows?
yeah.
But until then, we will. We would appreciate if you took a look at the Patreon just to check it out, see if you feel like it's worth getting yourself on there if you like what we're doing. But we're happy to have you anyway, and we will see you next time.